So, last time we were unceremoniously greeted by the Griever, and we are officially in Dungeon 2, the Hollows. I hope everyone is excited for the best archetype, the Water Dungeon.
Oh, I'm so happy you brought me along for this. Does it have ice? Do we have to raise and lower levels and freeze shit?
I mean, there's ice present.
Are we gonna have to do, like, sliding ice block puzzles?
Look, man, I just don't want to be back in Nimpies. Anyway, hey, I'm FP0. I'm joining for this one.
We did wonder. But seriously, are there sliding block puzzles? I have to know.
In a manner of speaking, yes, there are sliding block puzzles.
Is there at least going to be a sliding block puzzle in which the game arbitrarily but awesomely briefly turns into a completely unrelated game?
No.
That's a shame.
That was a very specific question. What game are you thinking of? Because
I don't know. Any game. I mean, you know, we one time we were just casually minding our business and suddenly it was Panzer Dragoon.
it has been a long time since I've seen this game. I got it back when it was on the 360. And it was in that kind of like, hey, I just bought a 360, let's go take a look at all the games that have come out for this thing in the last however many years. And, I never beat it. But I did play to probably, I don't know, like the 2/3 point.
It's a shame. I like it a lot. But yeah, so, like I said, welcome to Water. It's great. Everybody loves it.
I'm a fan of the Mario pipes on the wall. I'm a fan of how there's this styling on the wall and the pipes just jut right through the middle of it with absolutely no concern for placement.
Are you gonna grab these things?
I am trying so hard to grab these things, and there's a bomb flower right next to it, so... He kept grabbing the bomb.
You have the Goron bracelet, I guess? Look, you wanted me here. I'm playing fucking Zelda, like, all the time now. You wanted me here, this is what you get. You bring me to the water temple.
I'm holding out for the gambit where we have to make 6 incredibly precision jumps across, like, frame-wide columns in order to get out a door.
Oh, I did that earlier today, judging levels for the most recent SMW Central contest.
Would you say they were more or less bullshit than that one bit in Empires that I've actually seen because somebody linked it to me and said you have to see this bit?
Which bit was that?
That was the 6 precision jumps across the tall pillars to get out the door.
Ah, yes. Well, I didn't have to use save states for this one. It was just hard. So I guess it was less bullshit.
And of course the big question is this game going to be anywhere near that kind of bullshit, or is it actually going to be a good game?
No, this is actually a good game.
What a relief.
Anyway, so of course, as we all know, the first thing you should do when you're in a big industrial complex is to immediately turn on the gas and put it right next to the sparking fixtures.
And then throw metal at it. Like, this is great. This is just...
War is actually the OSHA inspector? That's the deep lore behind this dungeon.
Well, I guess it's time to shut this place down. Because, Jesus fucking Christ.
This is a big hazard. This whole place is hazardous.
This is to say nothing of the flooding. And I don't even know where to begin with these walls.
I've seen, like, one handrail.
But seriously though, what are we actually trying to do?
I think we're trying to move the flames close enough so that we can use the bomb flower to blow up that red wall.
Because I missed that detail.
Yeah, there's a big bombable wall up here, so we have to get the fire.
Alright, we gotta get the fire over there because the fire can go on the boomerang. And that makes it explode rather than just be hot, I guess. Yeah, sure, whatever. I remember how this video game works. I remember how all video games work. It's red, therefore when you get fire near it, it explodes. No exceptions.
That is how explosive barrels work. They are always red.
I can't help but notice, though, that War is wearing a red outfit.
He explodes with Fury, though. Wait, Fury is a different...
Remember that one of our abilities is literally to set ourselves on fire, so...
New enemy?
Hey! Of sorts.
I just assumed so from the intro cutscene.
Yeah, so these guys... I mean, not that he got to do much there, but... Once we actually see them attacking, they kind of do the same thing as War. Like, they have that same little stinger type attack. That's really the only thing that differentiates them from the vanilla version. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, okay.
Something about their design reminds me very strongly of Metroid Prime. Like just the whole game, not the actual single entity in that game with that name.
Oh, just like the art design?
Yeah, like the way they made creatures in that game.
Oh. Yeah, I can see that. Because you have, like, space pirates, which are all kind of like... You know... The space pirate designs in the first game especially look very...
It's the inverted T silhouette from the front that does it, I think. I mean, it's actually spikes, but from the front they're all in profile, so you can't see it. So it just looks vaguely T-ish.
Oh. It's the big man.
This, on the other hand, is just some Gen 4 legendary Pokemon shit. I don't know.
He's a big guy.
Look, man, I can't... Don't make fun of poor Fire Hands. There's only so much he can work with here.
He's got the Retro Studio Shockwave. I'm trying to think of game development houses that have become, like, somewhat mimetically associated with a particular thing that enemies that they make can do, other than Retro Studios and the Shockwave. And the only one that I've been able to come up with in the 30 or so seconds that I've been stalling for time by explaining what I've been doing is the Hollow Knight Team Cherry spikes out the ground attack.
Oh, that's true. There are a lot of enemies in that game that do the telegraph of spikes out of the ground sort of thing.
I wonder if this game will have an original take on that, such as it is.
I don't know that you can call anything that this game does an original take.
Well, that's fair. But I mean, no, even like it's obviously extremely inspired by a lot of other games, most notably Zelda. But like the Zelda games between them, some of them did have things that ended up repeating themselves a lot over the course of one game. But there's no thing that you'd say like, oh, hey, it's yet another Zelda enemy with doing the Zelda enemy attack. Like that's not a thing.
I would say that Zelda was more, hey, we're going to have the same enemies show up throughout different games. They might have different attack patterns and things like that, but you're going to see the same dudes, maybe some of the same bosses. And think about how many times the Dongas show up, things like that.
But there's enough of them, and they do a good enough job differentiating them like moment to moment that it doesn't. That aspect of it does not get stale the way that a Retro Studio Shockwave boss might.
Yeah.
This is just a weird, floaty opinion of mine.
I think it's more just the first game that was really... The Shockwaves were really a thing in that. Second had them as well, but I think the enemy design in 2 was generally better.
Oh, I mean, also to be fair, like every single boss that they designed for the DK for the DK games also had that too.
Yeah, that really sealed it as like the retro Shockwave rather than the Metroid Prime Shockwave. There's a pattern here. Anyway, my point with all of this is that, like, even if the individual parts of this game are that heavily inspired by other games, it's still possible that they might find one thing from Zelda that they like and put on a bunch of enemies to the point where it becomes noticeable that they've done that.
Well, the other thing many Zeldas up until Breath of the Wild did was that they didn't usually put too many enemies in a room at one time. It was usually, unless it's a small enemy that's easily defeated, you usually only got like 2 or 3 of a big guy or something like that might show up.
They never really went for the serious action game enemy strategy interlocking.
Which is fine, because, like, Zelda, that's not something that Zelda's ever really cared about being.
No. Like, it's not at all like, I don't know, off the top of my head, any given action game by Supergiant, which is basically their first 2 games, had this thing where every enemy had an approach and a threat that it represented, and the way in which it evolved wasn't really by making those things stronger or having bigger numbers, although they did occasionally do that, but mostly what they did was they just gave you so many different combinations of all these enemies that having to manage them all at once became, like, really more of the game than the action. Possibly Hades is like this as well.
So FP, you joked about getting a strength upgrade.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Forgot we were getting the silver gauntlets.
Yeah. I no longer feel like making the jokes that I made on these occasions before.
Well, I mean, it doesn't quite work like that. It's, it does serve as a general purpose strength upgrade. So, like, now we can bust the ice, we can open those doors in the last section that we couldn't open on our own.
Can we make a Retro Studio Shockwave?
We can. We can now make shockwaves on our own.
Nice.
That's what Samus needed. The ability to create bigger shockwaves. Honestly, the power bomb, not big enough.
Yeah, the gist of the Tremor Gauntlet is basically, this is your one-on-one weapon. Because you have a decent shockwave with it, but its main focus is to explicitly knock dudes away.
Yeah, I guess you can either punch the dude or you can punch the ground. I have no further questions at this point. And I can see neither do you.
And this is just a big ol' mess of a fight. I see.
Just a big ol', hey, here's some dudes, try out your new toy.
There was an extent to which I was warned about this. Like, it was known to me that in this dungeon we would find ourselves fighting interminable waves of enemies.
Oh no, that's the next one. This one's okay for the most part.
But see what I mean? Like, Zelda doesn't really have big, giant kill rooms like this. At least not to this extent. Especially not in the 3D games.
It does, but when it does, they're like their own set pieces that you'd never just find a room in a dungeon where you'd be like, okay, now fight 50 enemies.
Yeah.
There would be the place that you go, that's the one place in the game where you'll fight 50 enemies.
Yeah.
It's a valid thing to have people do in an action game, just...
Zelda just ends up... Zelda stays more on the lines of, we are an adventure game first.
Go find places, see and do things, gawk at the scenery, and occasionally kill things.
And that's fine. I think Zelda has a lot of... I think it gains a lot through its atmosphere and just, like, the general design. It's more simplistic design in a lot of cases, but it ends up being, you know, very accessible, very... just... it works well.
It doesn't have a lot of things that it demands, but it ends up having a lot of things that you can do, and there are a lot of directions that you can take with it, and it can end up feeling in a lot of different ways to a lot of different people.
Which is kind of why Breath of the Wild ends up feeling so different, because there is, in the overworld at least, the big enemy camps, and you do have, like, 5, 6, 7 dudes.
Yeah, like 7, and not like 50.
Yeah, but it still feels a little overwhelming in that regard, because you do have many more dudes than you would normally have in other Zelda things.
But that's when you break out the Splinter Cell tactics.
It's true, you wait for night, you sneak up, and you get them all, and then it's not as fun.
I mean, I think it's also worth pointing out, like I said, again, we mentioned, Zelda never really tries to do that. It's not a game like... The most combat-focused I think it ever gets is Twilight Princess, and even then, all of the things that you can do are so blatantly unnecessary.
Yeah, it's true. Most of the special techniques in Twilight Princess are not really, like, required. The ones that are... or super useful. The ones that are useful are, like, the jump slash to go over the dude.
The mega shield bash parry thing.
I don't even remember what half of them are, because you don't use half of them.
And I think the most needless but very welcome thing was the fact that they put the EI quick draw in there, even though it's like it's not in any way that kind of swordplay. But no, fuck it, you can just do a quick draw insta kill. And of course, if you press the button at exactly the right time after getting a kill, he does the victory dance. It's hype.
Before we get don't talk about it again. I like that you can charge up your gauntlet and just, like, punch the shit out of blocks that you gotta move.
Yeah, that's extremely good. That's aesthetic as all hell.
You want block puzzles? Alright, let's mitigate.
Yep. This is a direction I can respect.
The problem with most block puzzles in games is just that they take so long to do.
Yeah, it's time. I think I said verbatim about multiple things in multiple previous videos in this game specifically, that most players will put up with basically anything if it's fast enough. Like there were a bunch of times where we had to climb meticulously across some stuff in the environment, and you just hold down the sprint button and War is just like, fuck it, and goes in a single bound, and he might as well be sprinting along that wall.
Yeah, because you can jump across the wall while...
And you're only held up for like 4 seconds.
Which is why climbing doesn't really feel that problematic in Breath of the Wild, because you have the little jump, but climbing in Ocarina of Time feels like it takes forever. Because there is no way to mitigate it, and it is pretty slow.
Yep. And here we've got, we've got a big block and we've got to move it around, but the actual process of moving it, other than the very short drag that we had to do, is A, snappy, and B, entertaining.
Well, it also helps with the dragging that you can... It's omnidirectional movement on it. You don't have to, like in Zelda, go to, all 4 different sides of the thing and push it.
The point is, it's a puzzle, and it tests your brain, and the time between when you figure out the solution and when you're able to enact the solution is minimized, and therefore people don't hate it. This is like, it's always time. One way or another, almost everything that I like or don't like about particular things and particular games comes down to time.
How much investment you have to spend doing the thing that you already might know how to do.
Things that I don't like are mitigated by not having to spend a lot of time doing them, and conversely, things that I do like, I like less if I have to do them a lot and they aren't, like, immediately entertaining or engaging in some of them. I mean, there are video games where technically you do nothing. I like walking sims. You don't do anything in those games, but you'll never hear me leveling this complaint against Gone Home or Everybody's Gone to the Rapture.
Or it's like the boss fight against Chaika in Prime 2, the larval phase, which has basically one like set of attack patterns, but you have to sit there and go through a long health bar.
Yeah, it's boring and he takes a while to die. It's not particularly difficult, but you get it has I think the closest thing that I can identify to a universal cardinal sin in any video game in any genre is a pattern of design where you make the player bored and encourage the player to rush and then punish the player for rushing.
And it's funny because this almost feels indicative of. Hold up, that's a big dude.
Wait,
I'll acknowledge the big dude before going forward.
You are seen.
Oh, it's Mark Hamill. No, what I was going at is it's kind of indicative of how Prime 2 did its whole middle part of the game. Oh shit.